So what was the determining factor here for Starmer?
Well, I think it's firstly really important to recognize the kind of personal context of this, and that is that Keir Starmer has been a long-time supporter and friend of Israel. I mean, he wrestled control of the Labour Party away from the far left, and he's been consistently supportive of Israel's rights to self-defense after the 7th of October attacks. But he's also been a consistent supporter of the Palestinian right to self-determination, and he's always been a supporter of the two-state solution as a way to end the conflict. So really, I think there are kind of two main reasons why he is now moved his position towards supporting a Palestinian state or recognizing a Palestinian state now. I think the first is out of genuine frustration and a sort of sense of helplessness of the UK's kind of inability to impact Israeli policy, particularly on Gaza, for what the UK perceives as a sort of mishandling of the whole humanitarian situation, but also kind of belief that, ultimately Netanyahu is artificially extending the length of the war for kind of personal political reasons. But I think the second major policy disagreement they have is kind of over the frustration of the Israeli government's attempt to what it sees as kind of deliberately destroy prospects for a two-state solution with settlement expansion in the West Bank, but also the threats and reports of potential annexation. So I think really the UK government feels that it kind of exhausted all other attempts to try to leverage, policy over the Israeli government, which is really why this attempt has happened. But I think really, the fact that Starmer has kind of made this planned recognition dependent upon
Exactly.
steps by Israel really shows that actually Starmer is seeking an actual policy outcome here, because he knows that ultimately a solution to the conflict will ultimately be much better off if you have kind of voluntary Israeli participation rather than kind of forced attempt to do this by the international community. But as your report mentioned, of course, Keir Starmer has domestic political considerations as well. He's facing a new challenge from the far left, from Jeremy Corbyn. So I think that also is a factor here.
So the if here, the condition here is crucial. Would recognize unless or should Israel ... So the statement was already made. So to an extent, the symbolic damage, quote unquote, was already done. What would it mean for the diplomatic relations between Israel and the UK in the future?
Well, I think it will certainly damage it. I mean, obviously, we've had a very strong statement from Netanyahu. He said that, essentially this is an attempt to appease Hamas, which I think is actually really reading it the completely wrong way. And I think, of course, you have to be mindful of the actual impact on actors on the ground, particularly with Hamas. But I certainly don't think this is a reward for Hamas. I think actually the UK recognizing a Palestinian state on the basis of a two-state solution is in fact an anti-Hamas move, because it actually directly contradicts Hamas's pursuit and vision for a one-state solution. This is not an endorsement of a river to the sea, vision of a Palestinian state. This is a view of a Palestinian state side by side with an Israeli state. And I think really, the British government feels that the alternative of continuing the status quo, of kind of futile attempts to trying to pressure the Israeli government to continue with a, or at least a shift towards a positive two-state solution, is ultimately encouraging Israeli one-state solutionists, like Netanyahu, like Ben Gvir, like Smotrich. And so really, this is an attempt to empower moderates and disempower extremists, because ultimately, what could be more of a recruitment drive for Hamas than actually an unmitigated Israeli pursuit of a one-state solution? So really, I think this is an attempt to try to bolster moderates in the region. So I think really, I think it's so important to recognize, of course, that Starmer is a long-time friend of Israel, and when long-time friends are actually giving you pretty serious feedback like this, it's important to take it in the right way rather than actually interpreting it in which it certainly wasn't intended.